today. Please, everyone, set your cell phones to silent mode. Because this is TWIS, This Week in Science episode number 559, recorded on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. Shock, breakout! Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. It's like the disco entry. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on TWIS we are going to fill your heads with a bit of dust, rats, and our favorite parasite. But first,
disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. What you are about to hear is unlike anything else you have ever heard. We are certain of this for the very inescapable reason that nothing you are about to hear was known before we said it. Well, maybe a little bit before. But this is not a recap, a redux, a reinterpretation of an old formulaic plotline, archaic theme, or out-of-print fiction magazine. No, what you are about to hear is all new. So new that much of it is happening right now. So current are the stories that there's a chance of getting swept away by them. So intimately and indispensably involved with our daily lives are the tales to be told that there may be tears of fond farewell when it's over. But it's never over. At least it's not now over. In fact, it hasn't even begun. Otherwise, it would make absolutely no sense for me to say, This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
and good science to you, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome once again to another hour of This Week in Science. Hour-ish of This Week in Science on my ish-wish dish. All right. I brought all sorts of fun stories.
What'd you bring?
I have some stories about dust from Africa. Africa, that's right, blowing in the wind. Also some first light caught by NASA's Kepler, and additionally some space news. Ceres and Pluto, some big news for them. And then some bacteria in space, because that's always fun. Justin, what'd you bring?
I've got a parasite that needs no introduction. I've got getting to the bottom of mortality and clumps of a feather, as well as possibly maggots, maybe.
Ew. I'm never okay with maggots. Ever. Ever. All right, Blair, what did you bring for the Animal Corner?
Oh, I brought a very expensive flea. I brought panda ears. I brought unlikely friends. And, guys, I gotta tell you, I have a rat problem.
Oh, no. Ooh. All right. Thanks for letting us know. It's good to be forewarned on this show on the 23rd of March. Time for science. Let's get in there, yeah?
Science!
Science! Let's dig into these fun stories. So, okay, let's just get the climate change stuff done, right? Off the top. We're going to just dig right into the, climatia, right? Climatia.
That almost sounds like a child's name. Have you met my eldest, Climatia?
Oh, that's a problem. That's just not okay. James Hansen, a researcher we have discussed before, and very recently we discussed a paper that he had just started talking about and publicizing before it had gone through peer review. Got a lot of criticism for that, but just want to put it out there that his massive, this is like a 50-page massive review paper, has gone through peer review finally. It is now published, and it is published in an open access journal, which means that anybody who wants to can go access it at Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics. So go look for the open access journal titled Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics. Look for James Hansen. He's not the only author, but his work, which is now entitled Ice Melt, Sea Level Rise, and Superstorms, Evidence from Paleoclimate Data, Climate Modeling, and Modern Observations that 2 degrees Celsius global warming could be dangerous, which, thanks to peer review, is no longer titled Ice Melt, Sea Level Rise, and Superstorms, Evidence from Paleoclimate Data, Climate Modeling, and Modern Observations that a 2 degrees Celsius global warming is highly dangerous. Very slight language change, actually, but it's something that people believed was a little bit sensational originally, and now has been toned down.
Yeah, because sea level rise and the end of the world. These are things we don't want to alarm anybody with.
Yes. So the process of peer review, we know a lot of changes were definitely made. They actually added 2 new authors to the paper in the process. Yeah, and one of the big things that comes out in this paper is their postulation of what's called stratification of the polar oceans. And they hypothesize that what's going to happen, and we've already seen a little bit of it in the thinking of the blob, which are these patches of warm water that don't get mixed with the rest of the ocean, that the oceanic mixing, that the currents that are usually there mixing everything together are slowing down, not working as well. Water's not upwelling from down below, from the cool depths, to mix this warm water in. So we have blobs of warm water that trap pools of cold fresh water on the surface. And these blobs of warm water, as they come in contact with ice caps, other things like that, they're going to melt them faster. So what they see and what they predict based on their models is that there are going to be more of these blobs. There's going to be faster ice melt, faster sea level rise, and just basic, Yeah,
and let's also not forget there's a fair amount of carbon that's locked away in this ice. There's a fair amount of methane if we're talking about tundras of Siberia, but there's a fair amount in the ice caps, polar ice caps. There's a fair amount of carbon that's actually locked up in that ice that, as it melts, will release, and therefore accelerating the situation. So.
Absolutely. So it'll be accelerated. So their model accelerates things and predicts much more rapid change or sea level rise specifically than the IPCC report. And the latest data from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, does show that there are these patches of cooler water and patches of warmer water, which people think might be these blobs and stratification that Hansen's paper predicts actually happening earlier than Hansen predicted.
Ruh-roh.
And the authors predicted. So, this is all just early kind of stuff, but, we can always hope for the best. Yeah.
But you should, even though you hope for the best,
prepare for the worst.
Yeah, it's
prepare for the worst.
How many times do you get into your car without your seatbelt because you don't plan on getting into the accident? Right? You put it on every time. You take the precautions against known danger, which we are not doing. We are not wearing our carbon caps and are therefore going to be stuck with chlamydia.
There's a famous political cartoon that said, "What if all this climate change stuff is fake and we make the world healthier for no reason?"
What if? Oh.
Yeah, there's also right.
Oh my goodness! Not the betterment of everything for everyone.
Well, that's articulate too, because it's not like the only way to prevent global warming is by burning massive amounts of carbon and putting it in the atmosphere and ruining the air quality for all life on this planet. It's the only way we can solve this, folks, is by poisoning the air. What a choice to make. No, it's quite the opposite, actually. Yeah. We can clean the air and fight this at the same time. So win-win.
Right. This is really interesting too, because one of the metaphors that they use to explain how climate change disrupts kind of the waterway system is that the ocean is like climate's heart. So when you disrupt the heart, when you inhibit the heart's ability to pump, that's heart disease. And then you have clogged arteries, or you have blood not circulating through your body the way that it should. And that's exactly how the ocean works, is it circulates warm and cold water. It also helps circulate warm and cold air around our planet. So if the circulation isn't happening right, it causes this systemic problem, and these blobs of warm water are doing just that. They're not moving around like they're supposed to. It's like a clogged artery.
And to take your analogy one step to the sort of ridiculous, they actually have been testing and putting stroke victims into a super cool chamber to help them recover better immediately after a stroke. So that's just taking the analogy to a really ridiculous place, but
very ridiculous place. Yes.
Happens.
But speaking about the circulation of air and the circulation of water, in other climate-based news, researchers have been trying to figure out we've heard for years about how the winds start blowing in Saharan Africa, and that starts a chain reaction which leads to dust traveling across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas, where it actually plays a big part in the ecology of South America, Central America, because of all of the nutrients in the dust and the bacteria that hitch a ride on them as well. Additionally, the dust that travels across the Atlantic Ocean is part of shielding us from energy from the sun. So it actually is a part of keeping things cooler, because because of the dust, when it's traveling across, we don't get as much energy into the Earth's atmosphere. It reflects things away. It's like a dust blanket, kind of like, the elephants use dust on a hot sunny day to keep themselves cool. So researchers have been trying to figure out, okay, what's the mechanism? How does this system work? Where does the dust really get started? How does it get blown out of Africa? And how does this system piece by piece fit together? And what they've discovered is that there in Saharan Africa, in the Sahel, there is a Saharan heat low that occurs. So in the Saharan desert, when there are high temperatures, the really high temperatures and this high pressure actually slow down the winds, which are called the harmattan, which come from the mountains, because this wind, this air gets funneled through the mountains and it speeds up. And the wind from the mountains hits the eroded sides of the mountains and starts picking up dust and hits the edge of the Sahara, and it sends this harmattan, begins the whole process. However, really high temperatures can lead to a heat low that block the wind and that really slow it down, so you don't get the kind of dust storms that we see many times. So they are also looking at the impact of water vapor in the atmosphere. They think that most likely that vapor is going to come from the Mediterranean Sea. Water vapor in the air will tend to increase temperature and can intensify this Saharan heat low and also slow down the harmattan. So you start putting all these things together. You slow down the harmattan. You have reduced amount of dust. This work coming... It's coming out of CNRS, out of France, and a U.S. team as well, French and U.S. team. They say that over the next 100 years, because of increases in the Earth's atmospheric temperature, we are going to see a decrease in the dust load from the Sahara. So the Saharan dust load that it gets put into the atmosphere, which also helps the system to stay cooler, is going to decrease, just as we probably need it to maybe be increasing and helping to keep us cool. So
further accelerating
this systemic fluctuations. Yes.
Goodness.
So the way this whole mechanism works with air vapor, the high pressure and temperature that either influence, block, or accentuate the winds that come out of the mountains. It's also going to lead, by reducing the dust, it's also going to lead to higher sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic, which will lead to more stronger hurricanes in the Atlantic.
And more water vapor, less
And more
dust.
water vapor, less dust,
Further
that also more stronger hurricanes, yes.
Sure.
So, yes, another great fun study. Yeah. So, I don't know. Might think about more positive things like exploding stars.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, we could think about more
How
positive
far
things
away
like
from us is it? Because that is a
distant.
direct relation.
Long as,
to how fun it
it's
is.
not ours.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the sun okay? Then it's fun.
The sun is okay.
Great,
And
let's hear it.
These were very far away. Researchers at University of Notre Dame, Indiana, led by Peter Garnovich, were using the Kepler Space Telescope data not to look for exoplanets, but to look for the brilliant light signature of stellar explosions, which we know as supernovas, supernovae, if you want to try and pronounce that AE at the end of the word appropriately. What they found by looking at light captured from Kepler every 30 minutes over a 3-year period, they looked at 500 distant galaxies. They looked at 50 trillion stars in the field of Kepler's view over this 3-year period, and they found 2 red supergiants that exploded. 2. They got the signal from 2. The first one is KSN 2011A, about 300 times the size of our sun, only 700 million light years away. And the second, KSN 2011D, the KSN representing the Kepler space, whatever, and 2011, the year being in which it was discovered, is roughly 500 times the size of our sun and 1.2 billion light years away, so one much closer than the other. These are massive, massive stars that the researcher says, to put their size into perspective, Earth's orbit about our sun, so where we are around our sun, would fit within the girth of these stars. Like those stars they chew us up. We'd be right inside of them. So what they found is this amazing blip, and it's so great to see. It's just this minuscule signal out of the noise. And what it is that they saw, they only saw it in one of the stars, not both of them. But it is, you see the noise of the light signal, the brightness of this light signal that they're watching, and there's just a blip, a very short blip, and then increasing light that it takes an exponential curve up to an asymptotic maximum. It's maximum brightness. So what we see with the little blip is what the researchers are calling shock breakout. And shock breakout is the moment of ignition, or the moment that we see the light from ignition, in which the explosion makes it to the outside of that star. So it's the first brilliant light of the ignition of this explosion that we see, the shock wave rippling out from the star. And this is the first time that we've ever seen this before. We have seen supernovas before, this massive explosion, lots of brightness. We got millions, billions of lumens. We've got so much more brighter. More brighter? I've got good language today. So much brighter than our own sun. But we've never seen this particular moment before, this particular moment of the shockwave first emerging. And we didn't see it in both of the stars because one of them is, they think, maybe surrounded by dust and gas, but then again, these are different sized stars. slight difference in their energetic possibility. So maybe one of them was surrounded by dust and we didn't see the shock breakout, or maybe the energetics of how the shock breakout occurs is different and works along a sliding scale. So as of now, we have basically two points of information about the beginning of a supernova. Yeah.
But of a type of information that is that hard to get, getting two right there, that's pretty fantastic.
Oh, it's incredibly fantastic. And there's a great animation. It's not the real thing. If you go looking online, this animation from NASA is not the real thing. It's an artist's interpretation. Researchers used the data they had in order to work with an artist to develop something that they think approximates the shock breakout at the instant of the supernova. So some pretty interesting stuff there. Yeah.
It's also interesting because Shock Breakout Supernova was the name of my surf guitar punk fusion band.
There you go. I was waiting for something like that. It's my surf disco fusion. Ooh, shock breakout. This is This Week in Science. Hey, Justin, what you have there?
I've got a common parasite that needs really no introduction on this show.
Right.
You have a parasite?
Well, actually, it's much more likely that you actually
both of us probably
are
have
hosting this parasite. It's third of the world's population have it. Is linked to psychiatric disorders, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, suicide attempts, car accidents, and it blinds babies before they are born.
And crazy cat lady syndrome.
Yes. Longtime friend of the show, Toxoplasma gondii, is in the news once some more. This time, a study has linked it to repeated bouts of rage. The disorder known as intermittent explosive disorder, also IED. The study released today, March 23rd, in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, found that people with IED are more than twice as likely to have been exposed to T. gondii than individuals who are healthy with no psychiatric diagnosis. This is the first time we've confirmed this idea in humans, says Theodore Postolache, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Maryland School of Medicine and an author of the study. It indicates that this parasite could be having significant effects on anger-related emotions and behavior in people with mental illness. This study is based on the combined expertise and aggression and inflammation of the authors, University of Chicago psychiatry professor Emil Coccaro and Dr. Postolache's knowledge of T. gondii and neuroimmunology. They looked at 358 adults and found that chronic latent infection with T. gondii is associated with the IED and increased aggression. So this is again one of those studies where it doesn't say, it's not claiming even that Toxoplasma gondii causes the disorder, right? But it is saying that because they're twice as, those with the disorder or who can be diagnosed with the disorder are twice as likely to be infected with T. gondii, it may be a trigger. It may be something that there may be a disorder of some sort that's just present but could be latent and not being triggered, but perhaps the parasite is doing something to inflame the situation, to make it more active or more apparent. And this could be across all of the things that T. gondii gets associated with. It could be that it's just creating regulation issues of some sort of these disorders. But yeah. So yet another
so is it inflaming something that they're already predisposed to have, or is it something that it's creating?
Right. And
is it just what happens to you when you get scratched by a cat and you've done nothing wrong?
Or is it that you are kind of predisposed to this kind of stuff anyway, and you eat more meat than other people, and you have rage, and because you eat more meat and maybe more rawish meat, you actually just got infected with T. gondii? Because you're behaviorally predisposed to do things that make you more at risk to infection. which is a possibility.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's another way of trying to get away from the fact that this thing only procreates in cats, and cats are the only vector that we know of that's spread them because it's the place where it completes its life cycle. But yes, they said though this is they're going to continue this work between the relationship between Toxoplasma gondii, impulsivity, and aggression in collaborations with researchers from Sweden who are studying people who have recently committed suicide, and Germany who are studying aggression, impulsivity, and neurotransmitter dopamine.
And I hope they're studying the brains of the people who have recently committed suicide.
Yeah, it's probably.
Just studying the people. No, not going to get much behavioral stuff out of them at this point.
Yeah, and it's also important they say because Toxoplasma is known to reside in slowly growing forms in brain tissue. This is actually a recent understanding. And it has the potential to intermittently reactivate. So finding that those connections to T. gondii and what it might actually be doing in the brain, and what triggers these sorts of reactions in people, may put us not so much down the line of figuring out caring about what Toxoplasma gondii or curing Toxoplasma gondii infections, but actually in figuring out the signaling or the pathways or what's going on that triggers these events or creates manifestations of psychiatric disorders more so in these populations than in others.
I'm wondering how this fits in with the last study that we talked about related to T. gondii, where I think it was a meta-analysis, and they determined that really there's not any evidence suggesting that there's any increase in impulsivity or any behavioral change pretty much at all.
So in that study though, what they looked at was does the infected population have a greater propensity for one thing or another, but I don't know.
And they didn't find anything, right?
They didn't. They did in suicides, but they didn't much in anything else. But that's one study. That right now is a complete outlier to everything else that's on. Because part of also what we've begun to understand about this is it doesn't manifest like a disease. It's not going to have the same symptoms manifest in every person. It does seem though that there are these categories of either disease or personality behaviors that seem to correlate amongst the higher groups, and not everybody's affected the same. And the one study on driving reactions, it was the pH of the blood that seemed to be a big correlating factor, whereas those with certain pH blood types or what have you didn't seem to have any of these symptoms of slow reaction times, and others in another blood group did. And you can have Toxoplasma gondii, and it doesn't make you schizophrenic or a crazy cat lady or the anger issues. But there's a higher percentage of those people who exhibit those traits that do have it, much higher, twice as much, twice as often. So, or they're twice as likely to be, in this case of the IED, twice as likely to have a toxo infection. So.
Right.
That's the interesting thing about these correlations. It may not be the cause of a disease, but it may manifest. It may allow things to manifest in ways that they may not have without the infection.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and we'll always bring up the stories as they come up.
Yeah, correlations are fascinating because they can mean everything or nothing.
But the one thing that we do know and understand about Toxoplasma gondii is that cats are what spreads it.
Cats.
And speaking of cats,
we got our own crazy cat lady in what part of the show?
Oh no. Is it time once again?
That's right.
What time is it?
It's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
I'm calling her a crazy cat lady.
She loves our creatures.
Just play that.
Biped, millipede, no pet animals. Wanna hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. That I'm both for.
What you got, Blair?
Not cats, I'll tell you that. No. I have a very hot button issue on the show, not toxoplasmosis, but invasive species. We talk a lot about invasive species on this show. Pro or con, Kiki?
Mostly con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the difference between an introduced species and an invasive species.
Thank you.
Introduced is something that we did and it worked out perfectly and we did it on purpose and everyone's winning. Invasive species.
It's like we said, hi.
Whoops.
Hey, animal. Yeah, whoops.
Not so good. So a recent study looking at the true cost of an invasive species, looking at a lake, one of the Great Lakes in Madison, Wisconsin, so from the University of Madison, looking particularly at a little spiny water flea. Looking at the true cost of an invasive species. This is a fascinating story because in previous studies, they've mainly looked at the cost of removing an invasive species, and that's what they consider the cost. So, for example, looking at in another Great Lake, in the 5 Great Lakes, looking at invasive sea lampreys, looking at the cost of poisoning them, of moving them out of the Great Lakes. That costs $20 million a year. So they look at the cost of an invasive species and they say, okay, the invasive sea lamprey costs us about $20 million a year. Well, this study out of the University of Madison, particularly Jake Walsh, a PhD candidate at the UW Center for Limnology and lead author of the report, looked at the true cost of an invasive species. So particularly looking at the spiny water flea, which is brought to the Great Lakes via ballast water, which is how we get a lot of invasive species.
Yeah, a lot of invasive species come from ballast water. Those cargo ships, they suck it up in one port, and then they're like, oh, we don't need that, and they spit it out in another.
Right. So he wanted to look at the ballast waters from these cargo ships brought from Russia, these spiny water fleas. They made their way into the Great Lakes via the ballast water, and then they actually moved inland via boats and bait buckets. And now they are found all over the Great Lakes area, in particular in a lake in Madison, Wisconsin. They are feasting on, they're these little zooplankton, they're these little animals that float through the water. They feast on smaller zooplankton that are native called Daphnia polysaria, and that Daphnia species eats mainly algae. So he wanted to look at the function that is being disrupted by this invasive species and the cost of that, not just trying to remove it. So by eating the Daphnia, what they're doing is they're actually taking the cleaning ability away from the lake. So this is Lake Mendota. So the Daphnia eats the algae, and that's actually what creates clear water in the lake.
And the Daphne are so cute, too.
They're pretty adorable. So the spiny water flea, which is gross and invasive and not supposed to be there, eating the Daphnia, Daphnia can no longer clean the water. The water is getting more and more foggy. And not only then is that affecting the ecosystem, but on top of that, the people that swim, that fish, that give money to that area in order to recreate on that lake, that money's gone. Mm-hmm. So that's an impact of this invasive species. Then, trying to fix that problem, they have 2 options. One is to get rid of the fleas, which essentially just means killing the lake. If they really wanted to get rid of those fleas, they'd have to poison the entire lake out and start over. That's not really possible. So the other option is to take out the secondary thing affecting the water quality, and that is the fertilizers on the surrounding land that is dumping phosphorus into the water and making the algae grow. In order for them to
Huh.
actually remove enough phosphorus in order to clear up the lake, they would have to take a 71% reduction in phosphorus in the neighboring areas, which would cost $80 to $163 million a year in lost profits by reducing the fertilizer.
Because they're saying that reducing the fertilizer would make the agricultural land less fertile, and so it would be less food. But it would be helping the lakes.
Right.
Yes.
So this is just a very good initial study looking at truly assessing the real cost of an invasive species, which right now there are over 180 species in the Great Lakes that are invasive and have been brought there by ballast water.
Well, I've got an idea.
This is just one.
I've got an idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we find something that eats this sea flea and put it into the water? Problem solved.
Oh yeah, nothing can happen from that.
And well, yeah, if that thing becomes a problem, then we'll find something that eats that. We'll put that in the water. And we'll just keep going.
It'll be just a chain of introductions.
Teaming with invasive species that are trying to find a balance in a totally unbalanced environment.
Yeah. Anyway, I do find this, besides just really depressing, I do find it very interesting because I think it's the first study that's starting to really scratch at the surface of assessing the real cost of an invasive species. So it allows us to kind of take the step back and go, it's not just the cost of removing the animal. It's not just the function being inhibited by that animal. It's not the extra function they're delivering. It's the effect on the neighboring agricultural land. It's the effect on the trades on that land. There's a million things going into the real cost of an invasive species, and I think that's a really important lesson to remember.
And Ed from Connecticut is asking, how easy is it to clean ballast water? And it seems as though once you have an economic argument, you can say, you're not going to lose as much money by putting equipment on to clean your ballast water, or we'll fine you X number of dollars for dumping your ballast water. Because it's going to cost us this much money to fix this problem per year. This is not going to cost. So people who do this kind of stuff can then do a cost-benefit analysis.
Right, exactly. So right now, it costs nothing to dump your ballast water. So you're just dumping extra money to filter and sterilize the water before you get rid of it in most places. So once there are more regulations and we start cracking down on this, then everyone has to get microscopic filters, and they have to get UV sterilization things in their ballast thingies. That's the scientific term.
The thingies.
In their ships to actually properly sterilize water before they release it.
So I'm kind of curious. So I've hadn't thought about this until, of course, this story. But is there no regulation on this right now? I mean, or is it a scenario that we're talking about like for the past 50, 80 years this has been going on, and only in the last 10 did we start to regulate, and nobody dumps ballast water in their neighbors' ports anymore? Or is it still an ongoing thing? Because I mean, this has been going on without anybody giving a thought to it for so very long that
according to Wikipedia, the Coast Guard issued ballast water regulations according to the National Invasive Species Act of 1996 in 2012. And the EPA issued discharge permits for controlling ballast water under the Clean Water Act Authority. And so there are general permits that are allowed that set numeric ballast water discharge limits for commercial vessels 79 feet in length or greater, which is going to affect most cargo ships.
Yeah, but very recent development. There is the laws going into place to attempt to do this. But what we're looking at is the problem of the last, 50.
Yes.
Really, most actually you wouldn't have to go back 50. Most of this damage was probably done in the last 20 years. So
there's
more and more ships, more and more ballast water, likely.
Yeah. Yep. And there's an interesting question in the chat room about doing filtration in the ports. And ultimately, the only way to actually completely stop a lot of these planktonic animals from moving around through ballast water is by putting the filtration processes on the boats when they pull in the water. That's really going to be the only way to stop it. So unfortunately, it seems like most regulations are towards dumping of the ballast water, when really the regulations that should be in place is to have this stuff on the boats. Your boat cannot enter our dock unless it is equipped with these processes, because then that means that any water on your boat is clean. And that really would be, in my opinion, the only way to actually stop this problem.
Yep.
So, so invasive species, bummer. Here's another bummer.
What?
It's a happy, sad story. There's a half and half. So pandas, turns out they have this really cool ability. They can hear sound at the ultrasonic frequencies. Yeah. So a recent study at San Diego Zoo found that by working with pandas and the animal care specialists that work directly with the pandas, they were able to train the pandas to respond to sounds, and then they were able to gauge when pandas could hear and not hear sounds. And they found that giant pandas are able to detect sounds at way wider ranges than we thought. So
cool.
Yeah. And so
what good would that do them?
Well,
why?
I'm so glad you asked. Because pandas depend on vocalizations in reproductive processes. And a lot of those vocalizations happen at, it turns out, the ultrasonic level. So the problem there is that we create a lot of sounds at ultrasonic frequencies that we can't hear, but that bothers animals. So
So this is we can have like there could be a car going down the street and machinery going around, and to us it's really quiet. Actually, that's a vehicle making very little noise as it drives by, but it can be making a tremendous amount of noise and sound outside the limits of our hearing, but we aren't bothered by it, so nobody tries to dampen those sounds or block those sounds because we don't even know they're there.
Yeah, exactly. And it turns out that their ability to not only hear these reproductive sounds, but to discriminate between fine-scale differences is very important for successful reproduction with pandas. So if it's being muffled, if it's being competed against in the ultrasonic range, that's going to cause all sorts of problems with their reproduction. So it's possible that this is causing some of the reproductive difficulties with pandas. It's possible.
The pandas are sitting there like, dudes, you're totally killing my mood.
We're drowning out all the sweet talking that goes on before copulation. We're really ruining their scene. That's what it is. They don't know that any other pandas are interested because they can't hear each other anymore.
Maybe they sing each other sweet, sweet love songs.
Yeah.
They whisper sweet nothings. Yeah.
And then it's more like, you want to do what? What? What are you in the mood for? You want to eat some more bamboo? Okay. That's Friday night for pandas now because they can't hear each other. So you can look at this two ways. This is, we're really messing it up for the pandas. Or really, pandas, you're this sensitive.
Why are you so sensitive?
Well, look, if they're communicating, okay, so it would be then like you going out and dating, but during the date, you're not allowed to talk to the other person at all.
It would be a hindrance.
That would be kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And you'd be missing the signals and the signs and everything else. So here's the next step. Here's what they have to do to see if pandas have been so decimated by the sound pollution that they've forgotten how to sweet talk, or whether they can spring back immediately. They need to make the panda mating zones soundproof.
Soundproof. Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, you're right. That would be the way to find out. You're exactly right. That's the next step. We should tell the San Diego Zoo.
Yeah. Too bad they didn't find that pandas are into the subsonic range, because then maybe that would explain like their wanderings that you brought up last week.
Right.
You know, because the subsonic stuff you can hear for long distances.
Uh-huh.
So maybe that would explain how they wander, and then it's okay. But yeah, no, doesn't go there. No subsonic.
Curious.
Curious. So curious. Oh, pandas. This is This Week in Science. We're going to come back in a few minutes with a lot more science news for you. We have bacteria, and Justin's going to tell you to sit down. So with that, stick with us. We'll be back just a few with This Week in Science.
Explain the things you heard with more than intuition. The line of reason shows the way to go.
All right, everybody. If you like TWIS, you know we talk about pandas all the time, and with the pandas, it's all about communication. They're not communicating right, so let's communicate right. I want you to know that you can communicate with us anytime. Send us emails. We tell everybody what our emails are at the end of the show. You can also tweet. We tweet all the time, or look for our Facebook page. Our This Week in Science Facebook page is a fantastic place to get in touch with us. Say hi. Let us know if there are interesting stories that you enjoy. Also, the Science with a Twist Facebook group. That is one of our minion groups where we tend to view stories all week long, and there's some great stuff in there. ScienceIsland.org, also fantastic resource for getting your science news throughout the week. Thank you, Ed, for getting that going. And if you are really, really into the show and you just want to talk about the science stuff all the time with other minions and you'd love to get into it, well, you know what? There is a TWIS Minion Hangout, and usually it's on Thursdays, about the same time that TWIS airs. So around 7 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock Pacific time range. But if you go look for ScienceIsland.org, or just connect with us on our Google Plus community for This Week in Science, you'll find it. Look for the TWIS Minion Hangout, the Science Island Hangout, places to communicate and connect, and there's awesome stuff going on. So I hope you give that a try. Also, TWIS has merchandise for you, so head on over to twis.org and look at our Zazzle store. Zazzle.com is where we put a lot of our merchandise so that you can have fun TWISy art. Blair just sent me a whole bunch of art from our 2015 TWIS calendar, from the art that she created for the past year, and we are going to put it into some of these products on the Zazzle store. So maybe some of these things will be fancied with some Blair's Animal Corner art, which could be very fun. So twis.org, look for our Zazzle link, and you can find wonderful things like necklaces, mugs, t-shirts, and even stamps. American postage stamps that say TWIS. I love this so much. TWIS is also supported by listeners like you. Your donations pay for our bandwidth, fun things that we try to do for the show, contractors we need to hire every once in a while, equipment when things break. Rah! There's a constant money flow that we need to keep this show going. Any amount that you are able to give, we truly appreciate. So $2, $1, $100, whatever it is, it does help us oil the gears for this ongoing machine. We accept donations a couple of different ways. We have buttons all over twis.org for PayPal. You can also go to the most recent episode, or pretty much any episode, and look for links to donate on Patreon. Patreon.com/thisweekinscience allows you to donate in an ongoing way and get little goodies in return. And if you don't have a way to do that, we also appreciate any any way that you can help us out by telling your friends about TWIS, posting on social media about the shows, sharing the shows on social media with your friends, or just telling people about it, wearing our shirts and hats around so that people see TWIS and maybe start asking about it. All that stuff helps us out. Whatever you're able to do, we thank you for your support. We really could not do this without you.
Your body's lost toxins, whatever that means. You've stopped eating all of that sinister food. Your dinner tastes awful, so it's gotta be good.
And still, you can't believe what a skeptic I am. I can't believe you believe in that sham. We disagree, but I still give a damn.
And we're back with more This Week in Science.
Yes, we are. Justin, what you got there in that goodie bag of science?
Okay, most likely you're sitting down while listening to this show, which is well and fine most of the time. But you may want to stand up for what I'm about to tell you. There is a silent killer, a mostly science killer, in your midst. It is there when you are at home, when you are eating, while you are watching television, while you are working on your computer. It even follows you to work and lurks behind you at all times. And it is responsible for 3.8% of all deaths. Of all deaths. What is this monster of murder and mayhem? By what name does this beastly bringer of all-cause mortality ascribe? Sitting.
Oh, what?
Yes, sitting.
Well, Kiki and I are good. We're standing right now.
I'm standing. I got my standing desk.
Yeah, sedentary behavior, particularly sitting, has recently become a prevalent public health topic and target for intervention. How do you intervene? Get up! Stand up! You there!
Well,
Stand!
don't 100% of people that sit die?
Everybody does, yes.
This is true. But increased sitting. Sitting periods of more than 3 hours a day is what they ascribed. And this isn't just in the nation, this is worldwide. If you actually look at the United States, it's higher than that. Increased bottom time is beginning to take a big toll on our bodies because both at work, leisure activities, we have shifted over the years from standing or running in our physical activities to sitting. We sit at a computer, at a desk, we sit and watch television, we sit and play video games, we sit. So much sitting going on. And so investigators estimate that reducing time to less than 3 hours per day would increase life expectancy by an average of 0.2 years, which might not sound like a lot, but you have to understand, this is across the all-cause mortality menu of ways in which you can die. This is everything from asphyxiation by boa constrictor, cancer and car crashes, being struck by lightning or trampled by zebras. 0.2 years on average across the unexpected death spectrum is actually pretty good.
Couple of months?
Yeah,
No, that's just on average, but it's going across every way that you can die. You could die at any age early, too. This is 0.2 on the average life of all humans, regardless of when they died. This is actually a much bigger number than that, although I don't know what that number is. In order to properly assess the damaging effects of sitting, the study analyzed behavioral surveys from 54 countries around the world, matched them up with statistics on population side, actuarial table, overall deaths. Researchers found that the sitting time significantly impacted all-cause mortality, accounting for approximately 433,000, or 3.8% of all deaths across the 54 nations in the study. This is, of course, a correlation, but still. They also found that sitting had higher impact on mortality rates in Western Pacific region, followed by European, Eastern Mediterranean, American, and Southeast Asian countries, respectively. The type of information, they say, is crucial to evaluating the effects of sitting on our lives, and especially in light of recent research that shows prolonged sitting is associated with increased risk of death. This is the key, regardless of other activity levels.
Well, but okay, so a minute ago, I'm sorry, back up. You said that a couple 100,000 people died by sitting.
Uh-huh.
What does that mean, death by sitting?
Is that they just sat and they sat and they sat and they weren't active, and the sedentariness over extended periods of time during the day affected the cardiovascular health.
Right.
And
So
it
like they died of a
decreased
heart
their-
attack or something like that.
car crash or zebra trampling. It's across all
That's
death.
not. Then your cause of death isn't sitting. You were
It's
saying
not-
that
no,
that
the cause of
caused
is
death.
not sitting. Again,
They
cause
couldn't run fast enough to get out of the way of the bus.
this is just the correlation, the increase in deaths amongst those who sit a lot versus those who do not. This is what this is comparing. Those who are sitting, nations who are sitting a lot, nations who are not sitting a lot. This is sort of how this works, right? But what was interesting is that researchers now believe that periods of moderate or vigorous physical activity might not do anything to undo the detrimental effects of extended sitting. So it's not that you sit for more than 3 hours a day and then go jogging. If you were sitting for less than 3 hours of your day and didn't jog, you're actually better off. Right? That's very interesting. Now I have a gig that I don't sit very much, but still, even in that, 3 hours of sitting would be a really hard threshold to get under, even at a job where I'm walking around most of the time, right? That 3 hours is not very much time. That adds up very quick.
Yeah.
And this is sort of also taking into account the idea that sitting's a natural thing for people to do, but kind of unnatural at the levels in which we employ it,
We're doing it now.
today. Yeah, it's not what our bodies were built for.
And the opposite, or the corollary, that you should have a standing desk and stand all day long, that's not true either. Because if you're standing all day long, you're not necessarily doing movement either. And you're potentially, if you're not moving around and if you're not engaging in some kind of dynamic movement, you're not going to be affecting all the things that would be really helping you out. So
Except that's
balancing it and going from sitting to standing and sitting to standing, or at least having something that engages you to move while you're at the standing desk.
We would think,
That engages
but
posture correctly is important.
you would think that, but just based on this, going for the jog and the workout is
Not enough.
Is not enough, and actually doesn't help if you've been sitting that much. It's the sitting itself is that detrimental, and yes, it's across all causes of death. So it's like, do they get extra points if it's a car crash because you were sitting while you're like I don't know how they've weighted this exactly.
I do like Ed's comment, though. A desk job might be a tad safer than hunting in grizzly bear country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You would think, but maybe not. Maybe that turns out actually. Those grizzly bear hunters live to ripe old age. I haven't seen the data, Ed.
And another person also made a reference to another area where we sit that could contribute to some time.
Okay. Well, if you're spending 3 hours there, then probably
yeah, you might have some
else
other
you need to-
issues.
yeah,
But
there
it
might be
does
something
add
else
up.
to
I mean,
look
it adds up.
It should not add up to more than 3 hours a day. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't
it
care
shouldn't.
how much math you
shouldn't.
throw at that thing. There
Yeah.
should not be.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But you think about our lifestyle, and you think about you just go from room to room where there's different types of places to sit.
Yeah.
And if you're standing for more than a few minutes, somebody will go up to you and go, "Do you need to sit down?
Would you like a seat? Would you like to sit?
I'm sitting. You're standing. Would you like to sit?" It's so interesting that that's such a big part of our culture.
Because sitting conserves energy.
Yeah.
Well, also though,
Yes.
you bring up the another of the conditions of our culture. People commute long distances to work now. They could be sitting for a half an hour, an hour and a half each way to work. I mean, not even including being at work, and maybe they get to work and they sit there all day, and they get home from a long day of working and driving, and now they want to sit down in front of the couch, and then at some point they're spending the majority of their time sitting, let alone this 3-hour threshold, which seems truly unachievable.
And then, you know what we do? We lie down.
But then our spine elongates, so that's good.
But it's so sedentary.
I've been wondering about the benefits of just hanging myself upside down.
Yeah. Well, but then your blood rushes to your brain, and that's probably bad for your brain.
It's bad for your eyes. You get ocular degeneration.
You know what the number one killer is? The number one killer? Being alive.
Yeah, being alive. There you go.
Yeah. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Anyway, stand up, sit down, fight. Woo! Let's go to space.
Oh, yeah, we don't have to sit or lay down in space.
No, I know. Exactly. So someday when we are all on ships heading out to visit Ceres, to see the view that NASA's Dawn mission has been giving us, has given us amazing images from, we will one day gaze upon Okator crater. It's a 57-mile wide crater on Ceres that we have found from Dawn's images. It looks as though it's got a peak, something of a I don't know if you call it a hill or a peak, but there's or dome, kind of like half dome sticking up from this crater. And the view of it makes it really look like, okay, it's a crater and we've got this dome and this looks volcanic. It looks as though there was geologic activity and probably fairly recently. We've also been looking at, you might have heard of the bright spots on this dwarf planet. And these bright spots, people have been like, what is that? Is that water ice? What's going on there? And they're these reflective deposits, which are just reflecting light from the sun. And the deposits, they think, are the result of sublimation. So maybe there's water on the planet that this ice has been sublimating into space. So just going from ice to gas and going away, getting wicked away by space, and in the process leaving behind salts. And scientists think that is a mix of hydrated magnesium sulfate. So it's also known as hexahydrite. And it's these bright patches and streaks have been spotted at Haulani crater and Oxo crater as well on Ceres. And the gamma ray and neutron detector, known as GRAND on Dawn, people have been analyzing that information, and it looks as though there might be deposits of water ice still beneath the surface, mainly in the polar regions of this little world. So there are going to be more analyses to really test it, to find out for sure whether or not water ice is on Ceres, if it's surviving beneath that salty surface. And there's a lot more data to come from this little dwarf planet. It's very cool. Very interesting stuff. Pocked with craters, also streaked with linear fractures and features that make it look as though the surface of this dwarf planet has been creaking and turning and struggling against either some internal forces or other gravitational forces. Some neat stuff. Some very beautiful pictures from Dawn's series. And over at GeekWire, one of our favorite authors, Alan Boyle, one of our favorite reporters, has been reporting on it, and will probably keep us updated if there is any new news. Additionally, other dwarf planets in our solar system, you know the one, our favorite, Pluto. Pluto. Taking a big look at Pluto again. Guess what they think they've seen? Lakes of frozen nitrogen. Frozen lakes of nitrogen. That's what they think they've seen. Yeah. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. So New Horizons headed out to Pluto, and MIT's Richard Binzel said conditions conducive to creating a lake of liquid nitrogen might have existed 800 and 900 million years ago when Pluto's axial tilt was shifted enough to be able to expose a wide area of the surface to sunlight for long periods of time. And so millions of years ago, we might have seen a lake actually reflecting the sunlight. But not a lake of water, a lake of liquid nitrogen. And that liquid is not liquid anymore, but rather really frozen. So the axial tilt shifted, no more sunlight, and now frozen. Again, this article that I'm looking at is from Alan Boyle, and he says this lakes on Pluto scenario emerges from computer models that run the sequence of shifts in Pluto's orbit and the tilt of its axis backwards for billions of years. And that Pluto right now is at an intermediate point between its climate extremes. Kind of neat. So anyway, lots more cool stuff coming with Pluto. We've got some lakes. It's got frozen mountaintops. It's so much more than just a ball of rock orbiting in our distant solar system. So much more. Justin, you have any more stories?
I got a couple more. New research from the University of Copenhagen reveals that bacteria which agglutinate before entering the body, agglutinate's another way of saying clump together, aggregating themselves into like a biofilm. They agglutinate before entering the body, are far more resistant than single-cell bacteria, and that this may be the cause of chronic infections from bacteria. So ever since the discovery of bacteria at the bottom of Antoine van Leeuwenhoek's microscope in 1966, people have been going, ew, bacteria. Researchers, on the other hand, have primarily studied them. But studies on bacteria as organisms that enter the body individually and only then accumulate or agglutinate, creating what is known as the biofilm inside. So we study the bacteria as these individuals. They sneak in. The single bacteria sneaks in, and then inside it starts to form this biofilm, and this is this infection. However, the new study is conducted by researchers at the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences, the University of Copenhagen, among others, indicates that this view of bacteria needs to be revised. This way of looking at the infections needs to be revised. This is Quotey voice. Bacteria that enter the bloodstream as biofilm are stronger than bacteria that enter separately. This is something we have to pay far greater attention to in trying to prevent infections, for example, in connection with operations, says Professor Thomas Bjarnholt from the Biofilm Center at the University of Copenhagen.
I wonder, I'm just all of a sudden going back to the invasive species study that Blair brought up, and there's all this question of, how many individuals does it take to set up a permanent population when you're an invasive species, right? So if there's a whole bunch of them grouped together, they probably are much more successful than if there's just one random individual, right? And so with bacteria, it might be very, this is maybe a very similar, maybe analogous situations.
Slightly, except this is also the sort of the implication I think I'm reading through this is that it's not even if the individuals in there group up and create the biofilm within the body, it's still not as infectious and not as resistant to antibiotics than the biofilm that entered as a biofilm that was already a unit that was sort of surviving as a unit out in the world, not sort of trying to create its own colony. So they found a significantly different type of growth than previously seen in their experiments. The biofilm takes the main part of the nourishment available and thus outmatches single-celled bacteria. This makes biofilm the most important player, according to Bjarnholt. This is something we need to pay attention to while performing operations like. We have a lot of bacteria on and in our skin, which are clustered as biofilm and potentially pathogenic if they enter the skin. In this way, biofilm can penetrate or be pushed into the body when a surgeon cuts a hole in the skin containing a biofilm. Antibiotics are not designed to fight biofilm. They're designed to fight bacteria. They're sort of tested one-on-one, mano a mano, not a unit or a group or a platoon of bacteria working together. Often, antibiotics are not sufficient to fight chronic infections. This may partly be because antibiotics are, to a large extent, designed to fight single-cell bacteria and not biofilm. So they're just saying sort of, let's look at how they actually get into the body and exist in there and fight that, and not just do our isolated tests. Also because in the past we've also seen and learned that one of the interesting things about a biofilm is that it works as a community. There's different bacteria doing different tasks. So I can see how an individual bacteria may react differently or be attacked differently than a community of them with different tasks, with different relationships to the rest of the outside world.
So the bacteria are cooperating and working together. This is terrifying.
And they differentiate tasks too. So some may be
terrifying.
Producing a toxin to defend themselves against other bacteria. Others may be working on an antidote for that toxin, so that they themselves aren't affected by it. You know, they can, you know, some are collecting nourishment, some are just using it to generate more bacteria. They really sort of specialize within a group, whereas a single player is just, you know, hoping to reproduce itself with it. So,
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Speaking of more bacteria, I have I guess kind of not related, but it's just a bacteria study that really caught my eye because of the citizen science component, but also because it was about bacteria in space. Yeah, so Science Cheerleader, which is a citizen science website, and it's the idea, it was started by Darlene Cavalier, and the idea is that you use there are all sorts of cheerleaders who are also scientists, and they're also great spokespeople for science, and so there are many events now where there are science cheerleaders who go out and try and engage people in science, and this was one of their projects, and they actually went, and these science cheerleaders went and collected samples of bacteria from all sorts of environments here on Earth. So Darlene sampled Benjamin Franklin's foot. We also have her swabbing the crack of the Liberty Bell. Other cheerleaders sampled Candlestick Park and the grass on the park, as well as the seats in Candlestick Park. They announced this project, which is called Project Mercury, and there are youth cheer teams that contributed microbes and sampled their local environments, their houses, their places of work, and all of the bacteria were sent to the International Space Station, where bacteria were grown, and pretty much the majority of bacteria just grew like normal. Completely normal bacteria growth. These cultures were just fine, except for one particular species of bacteria which grew 60% better in space on the space station than it does here on Earth.
Wow.
Which one was that one?
It's called Bacillus cephensis. It's JPL Myrta 8.2.
All right.
Bacillus cephensis, JPL Myrta 8.2. It grew 60% better in space than on Earth. And so researchers now are interested in why this particular bacteria really liked space so much. Why did it grow so much better?
No gravity.
Yeah, but the other bacteria were normal. So why that
know.
one? Why that one species? Why the microgravity?
Maybe it's not. Well, of course, it would have to be the microgravity because they've, I'm sure, grown it without microgravity and found that it didn't do that. I was going to say a no competition thingy, but no, that's probably not it. Something else.
It's something else. There's something else. So this was published in PeerJ. PeerJ is an open access journal, which I have written articles about in the past. And anyway, open access, citizen science, bacteria in space.
I've got a quick proof of concept study.
Cool.
North Carolina State University researchers have shown that genetically engineered green bottlefly larvae can produce and secrete human growth factor, a molecule that will help promote cell growth and wound healing. So they had these lab-raised green bottlefly larvae, basically maggots, that they used in this therapy. They're applied to non-healing wounds. They used diabetic foot ulcers, in one example, to promote healing. Maggots clean the wound, remove dead tissue, and secrete then the next step, because maggots already did that. This is like a very ancient method of sort of treating a wound, is you put maggots into the wound. They do a good job. They get rid of the rot, right? That could cause the gangrene and the worst problems. But now these particular maggots are secreting they already secrete antimicrobial factors, but now they're also secreting this growth factor, which then accelerates the healing. So a very ancient technique being updated for today's modern gladiators with big cut wounds and for diabetics. They went through a few techniques. They ran through. They had this. They used different temperature settings for these modified maggots. They shocked them with electrodes. They were trying all these techniques, but they finally came up with one in which they would secrete this. They would contain the human growth factor, but they were having a hard time getting them to secrete it, and they finally got them to do so. One of the uses of this too is they think it's something that once these maggots are out and about, they can utilize them for middle and low income countries as a way of treating wounds without the need of antibiotics or a high tech lab or hospital facility for somebody to go into. This can be done in the field.
That's great.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's great. Yeah. And speaking of other advancements in medicine, someday we're going to be able to replace people's hearts. Like basically with their own cells. Like we are basically going to be able to build new hearts from scratch. And a study that was tweeted to me from David Eckert this week, researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital have published in Circulation Research about their work in which they have figured out how to pretty much scrub a donor heart of all of the living cells, so it becomes a matrix, and it doesn't have any of the proteins that it's like a scaffold for heart to grow on, and it doesn't have any of the rejection proteins. Yeah,
we had a guy working on the scaffolding on the show before.
Right, but in this case, it's not building, it's not engineering a scaffold. It's taking somebody's heart, a donor, say somebody who's died and is a donor. If you give your heart to somebody else, they're going to have to take anti-rejection drugs for the rest of their life. But these researchers from Massachusetts General Hospital have come up with a way to get all of the living cells and the proteins, the immune system proteins that would trigger rejection, off of the heart. And now have added so it becomes a scaffold.
Yeah, and I think that's what our guy was.
That doesn't have to be built.
I think that's what our guy was doing. It wasn't the building. That was the building of it, was removing everything else. But this is if they can. But they hadn't gotten to the point where they could repopulate yet.
And now they can repopulate the scaffold. So they take, and it's not even with embryonic stem cells. It is with skin cells that have been reprogrammed to be heart muscle cells.
Wow.
So they haven't completely made a brand new heart. They're not there yet, but what they were able to do is to get to basically populate this scaffold with these iPSCs, these induced pluripotent stem cells, so that they ended up getting cardiomyocytes that turned into fibers and then became spontaneously contracting tissue after days in culture. And then from there, they were able to put them onto this whole heart matrix and let them grow. And so the regenerated tissue found dense regions of these of cells that were derived from the pluripotent stem cells that had the appearance of immature cardiac muscle tissue and demonstrated functional contraction in response to electrical stimulation.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the researchers are definitely right. The researchers are definitely saying, okay, we're not to that point of making a whole heart yet, but we're a few years away from it maybe. And what they're pursuing right now is being able to create patches of this person matched cardiac tissue that could replace damaged tissue. So
We're so close.
We're so close. Yes. Yeah. Basically, they're at this point where they can maybe take your skin cells in a matter of a number of weeks, a short number of weeks, be able to grow cells, a patch that they can then put into your heart that responds to your heart's natural electrical activity. So yeah, there's some big things happening here. This is very exciting. There's some, yeah. I heart it. Blair, you got some more stories?
I have a couple. Actually, both of my quick stories this week are from coworkers of mine. They sent them my way this week, which is so great. They send me all of their interesting stories. So the first one is actually from my old boss, and he found an awesome story about hyenas being transplanted into a wolf pack.
What?
In Israel. Yeah. So in the Negev desert, which is the giant desert that's pretty much the entire bottom half of Israel, there are quite a few large predators, the main ones being gray wolves and striped hyenas. The hyenas we think of in Africa are spotted hyenas. So if you've never seen a striped hyena, I would strongly suggest you Google it because they are beautiful. But they are carrion eaters. They eat things that are already dead. They're scavengers. Gray wolves are mostly hunters. They will scavenge as well, but they spend most of their time hunting. And a while back, some researchers found footprints of a bunch of wolves and a hyena, and they appear to be traveling together. Well, then, a little while later, they actually saw, through an eyewitness account, a pack of wolves, of gray wolves, with one hyena in the pack. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, hyenas are pack animals, so if there's a hyena who's lost its pack, that there are, that maybe it's socially at a disadvantage for finding food.
Yeah. Well, and also in times of scarcity, these two groups are actually perfectly situated to help each other because one specializes in things that are already dead and scavenging. Hyenas have fantastic sense of smell. They're really good at locating and zoning in on dead things for many miles away. They're also better at digging and cracking and tearing apart food that otherwise wolves could not. Wolves are more agile, they're good at working together, and they're better hunters. So those two things together mean they can get to and exploit all of the meat in the area. And in a place like a desert, it benefits to help each other, right? So this is the first time we've seen that. So again, they saw tracks, and then in the exact same area 4 years later, they saw the eyewitness account. So we don't know if this is a one-off or if this is something that happens a lot, but now we have reason to set up camera traps and check it out.
Looking for those hyena-wolf friendships.
And then I also wanted to talk real quick about my rat problem.
Oh, yeah.
So this is from my coworker Stella. Hello, Stella. She sent this to me because it appears that in low-income neighborhoods, rat problems are more strongly linked to depression than other symptoms that you might expect. So it turns out rat infestations are considered on par, or in some situations actually more strongly linked to depression than drug sales, threats of violence, crime in general. So nobody likes living around rats. They're a sign of disease, they're a sign of poverty, they're a sign of low governmental support as well, because rats are usually where there's bad sanitation processes. So all of that together in surveys, actually all in Baltimore, they found that rats are have a stronger link to feeling that an area is low income or down and out than these other symptoms.
And maybe if there are lots of rats, and then I don't know, does rat urine affect people's mood?
Oh, it certainly could. That's a very good question.
Are there any compounds in rat urine?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it would make sense for us to respond to that, because that would be a sign for us to get out chemically, right? Because it would not be clean, it would not be safe. So we would want to leave. So that would be a good thing for our brain to tell us based on that smell. That's a great point. Overall,
rats are so cute, though.
They are very cute, but it still is upsetting when you hear scurrying sounds in your wall or on your bedroom floor.
Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah.
And I think recently there was a picture of some very large rats that have been found in, I think, New York City. Very, very large rats. They get giant.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You're not talking about the UK rat picture. There was something that was saying like giant rat found, but the guy's holding up the rat to like the camera.
What, is it an opossum?
No, it looks like an opossum by the size, but it's like like me going, the largest battery ever seen, because it's being held up. It's held on a stick, but it's being held way up front, so it looks gigantic next to the person.
Well, anyway, the point of this story was that
people get sad when there are rats.
People get sad when there are rats, but that means that's something that government should keep in mind when they're trying to turn around the mentality in a low-income area. Yeah. So Baltimore is now particularly looking at improving sanitation. They're giving out trash cans to people to try to reduce the rat problem, so that actually can help curb that problem, because there are other things that go along with that. There's this kind of feedback loop of, if people think they live in a poor neighborhood, they will act differently,
and they don't take care of it as well.
They don't take care of it.
So that's often used, but it's absolutely untrue. It's not that the area isn't being...
They're involved. No. I'm not saying one is the cause of the other. There's definitely a hand-in-hand relationship.
Yeah, when you don't have the park equipment getting repainted, when you don't have the public areas being maintained because the business owners in the... I mean, that's the idea that the people themselves aren't taking care of the area.
But also
makes us one imagine that a well-kept area is because the people there are picking up trash, or
that's not what I said at all.
I'm just pointing out. Just let me just say, if I can do the finger wagging thing, there is that misnomer that people in lower income areas are less likely to take care of their immediate surroundings, when in fact the people who are living in a well-maintained area likely aren't doing any of that themselves, and it's an economic issue and it has nothing to do with people's desire to live.
Good point.
So yes, but it also comes down to where money goes in a municipality, and if the overall aura of the area is that it's less poor because there are less rats around, people will be more likely to put money into that space as well.
And it's just a lack of education, because really a preponderance of rats means you're much less likely to have a large rural feral cat population, which means you're less likely to get Toxoplasma gondii, which means you're less suicide.
Once again.
I think really
I would rather have toxoplasmosis.
You just need the education that goes along with it.
I would rather have toxoplasmosis than some of the terrible things that rats could leave you behind.
Dear gracious. My quick stories here at the end of the show. There is a new molecular printer that has been developed by researchers at which university? University of Illinois, and researcher Martin Burke who's in the Department of Chemistry, heads up Burke Laboratories, and he has created this machine that basically takes the building blocks of chemistry and can create probably just about any molecule possible. It's pretty amazing. This machine, he says, we wanted to take a very complex process, chemical synthesis, and make it simple. Simplicity enables automation, which in turn can broadly enable discovery and bring the substantial power of making molecules to non-specialists. And the idea behind this is that it also, instead of having to synthesize molecules over long periods of time, sometimes, the synthesis of things takes a lot of time, money, effort. Now it can happen in a very, very short time frame. This machine can utilize over 200 different building blocks along with thousands of other molecules to be able to eventually piece together and 3D print, so to speak, billions of different organic compounds. The vision for the future is that anyone who needs a specific small molecule can essentially print it out from their computer. We are really excited about the immediate impacts that this will have on drug discovery.
Oh, well, I was going to say, yeah, there's another type of discovering drugs that can take place from this thing. It's like, this becomes a drug manufacturing lab in anybody's printer.
Yes.
And it's actually, you can print it out right there on the paper, already with the little designs on it and everything. Well, that might just be my thinking. Actually, I need one of these.
Right. Well, it's a fairly big, bulky machine, and the building blocks themselves are probably, it takes a little bit of cash to be able to put all the building blocks together,
probably
but
worth it.
They're able to create with this device that's basically a series of tubes and pumps and hoses, able to 3D print these molecules. And they use the analogy of Legos. So they've got pieces of chemistry broken down like Legos that you can put together just about any which way you want. They also think that the possibility of creating molecules that we've never found in nature is a high probability because you can.
I think it's Breaking Bad for everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's what this turns into. You get a drug lab. You get a drug lab. You get a drug lab. This is going to be the thing, right? That's going to be the first highest and best
mom
use.
and pop prescription drugs.
Well, there could be that.
Or print your own medicine for diabetes. Print your own, aspirin. Print your own.
Yeah, I'm going to use it for aspirin. Yeah, because
Do you think this will break the monopoly
to get my hands on legally. Right? It's so hard to go down to the store and get a bottle of aspirin for $4. No, I'm going to get a $3,000 printing machine for that. No, it's not going to.
So here's my question:
Put these molecules up. All the molecules that are available, for open access on the web.
Right.
You know what goes into it. Can you print it? Can you make it?
So this means that things that are currently patented or protected or somehow somebody has the rights to it. That's because it's the process, right? It's the chemical process that they have the rights to. Is that right?
Not always.
Not always. The chemical process sometimes, and other times it is a molecule because they've done something that isn't found in nature.
Yeah, a lot of drugs have to be the molecule because somebody else could come up with a slightly different process to achieve the molecule, right?
Yeah.
So no, this is going to be used for.
The molecules are not the same as what we're talking. Like when we're talking about DNA genomes,
Right.
it's different.
Right.
And these are because there was a manufacturing process in the first place to create the molecule, but that's the molecule itself is what's patented. They could change the process to get to it, but somebody else couldn't just use a different process and get to it and say, aha, this is the process I used. So probably terrorism, illicit drug trade are the two reasons you and I won't be able to have one of these at home.
I don't know. There are a lot of things that we can have at home, and I mean,
But yeah,
I'm imagining for a very long time this is going to be a technology. I mean, right now it's a machine that looks ugly. It's in a lab, and it's going to be, the technology is going to be developed through a private company, and that private company is going to make it prettier and more efficient and probably fairly expensive. And so how long will it be before the machine is affordable enough and also the building blocks are affordable enough?
Sleek and has a big one circular button in the middle, and then to the patent question, it's like MP3s. It was like, oh, what's going to happen to the music industry? Well, it didn't go away, but yeah, it was. The CD stores are folding. Like they replaced the record stores. Muhaha, CDs are so much better, and now there's who buys a CD, right? It's instant download, and it'll probably go. So drug companies will be out of business.
Yeah, our chat room is saying, yeah, this is going to be big. Delivery is big. Nobody, if you can, it's going to have to be cheaper than buying drugs at the store.
Actually, Gord makes a good point, though. Maybe it's worth paying a little more not to have to go to the store anymore. People like ordering stuff and having it brought to them. They're getting used to this.
Exactly. Researchers have proposed in Quaternary International, very popular science journal, proposed that Neanderthals may have aided and abetted in their demise because of the fact that they were cannibalistic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. So the hypothesis is that when resources became scarce, Neanderthals went back to cannibalism, and that cannibalism, as their populations were fracturing, and that they were competing against a non-cannibalistic species, early humans, that it led to the new species gaining dominance and the cannibalistic species losing ground. They modeled it, and they pretty much determined that cannibalistic population gets displaced from the richest areas, lives on the borders with arid zones, a situation which is remarkably similar to what we know about the end of Neanderthals. Yeah, so maybe cannibalism? Have we done it?
I think so.
We did it.
I think we got there. We ended on a high note.
Maybe.
Cannibalistic Neanderthals.
Yeah! Just the story gets better and better. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this show this week. It's time for us to thank our Patreon sponsors. I would like to thank Kevin Parachan, Keith Corsell, Steve DeBell, Patrick O'Keefe, Jason Snyderman, Rudy Garcia, Gerald Sorrells, Greg Guthman, Dave Neighbor, Jason Dozier, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, Jason Roberts, Patrick Cohn, Chris Clark, Richard Onimus, John Ratnaswamy, Byron Lee, E.O., Bob Calder, Jared Lysette, Ulysses Adkins, Brian Condren. Jake Jones, Trainer 84, Edvardus Rumkis, Brian Hedrick, Cassie Lester, Sarah Chavez, Layla, Shannon Tara Ginsburg, Marshall Clark, Charlene Henry, Don Kamarechka, Larry Garcia, Randy Mazuka, Ed Dyer, Tony Steele, Dave Friedel, Craig Landon, Daryl Lambert, David Wiley, Robert Aston, Flying Out, John Crocker, Richard Porter, Christopher Dreyer, Andrew Dolinger, Sylvan Westby, Artyom, Pixelfly, Shuwata, Stephen B., Dave Wilkinson, Steve Mashinsky, Rodney Lewis, Braxton Howard, Phil Nadeau, Rick Ramus, Sal Good Sam, Matt Sutter, Emma Grenier, Philip Shane, James Dobson, Kurt Larson, Stefan Insom, Michael George, Russell Jensen, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, Tara Payne, Alex Wilson, John Maloney, Jason Olds, James Noah Wiles, Paul West, Alec Doty, Luma Lama, Joe Wheeler, Dougal Campbell, Craig Porter, Adam Mishkan, Aaron Luthen, Marjorie Paul Stanton, David Simmerly, Tyler Harrison, Ben Rotheg, Columbo Ahmed, and Gary Swinsberg. Thank you all for your support on Patreon. And if you are interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Also, remember that you can help us out simply by telling your friends about TWIS. Go tell them right now. On next week's show, once again, we'll be broadcasting live online, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, twis.org/live. You can watch and join our chat room, which is an awesome place to hang out, I have to say. But don't worry if you can't make it. You can find our past episodes at twis.org/YouTube and twis.org.
I can't. Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory, or if you have a mobile device, you can look up TWIS for Droid, that's TWIS the number 4, Droid, app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple marketplacey.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts as well as other listeners.
Yes, or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twis.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIScience, at Dr. Kiki, at JacksonFly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We'll love your feedback. If there is a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from today's show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just better understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science.
This week in science.
This week in science. Science. Science.
This week in science. This week in science.
This week in science. Science. Science.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science.
And it is time for the TWIS after show. After the show, there is a show. It's called the after show.
So
I love this video of Ceres. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
JPL put it together, and it's just very pretty to be finding out about Ceres and the pictures of this rough. It looks like a moon. Ceres looks more like a moon than anything, but it's pretty. It's pretty. So what were you going to say?
I was going to ask you if you got a cat.
Nope. No cat. Nothing
Did you
yet.
visit any cats?
We tried, but then it didn't work out well. No cats.
Why? Why? What happened? Tell me about it.
No, it was just a weird situation. We drove up to Vancouver for the Vancouver Humane Society to go up there, and then
You went to Canada?
no, Washington, Vancouver, Washington. It's just a half an hour away, 20 minutes away.
I didn't realize you were so close to Washington.
Yep, right up there. Yeah,
Huh.
you could drive over the river, the gorge, and you're in Washington.
Huh.
Yeah, Portland's right at the very top of Oregon, very tippity top.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but we went to look at kitty cats, and then we found out that the cat viewing and adoption stuff was supposed to start at noon, and so we made sure to get there a little bit early, but it turns out we had to be there at 10 a.m. to get to draw a number. And then if we had a number, then we'd be able to be in that order to see the cats. It was all messed up, and so we missed it. We missed out.
Aw.
Yeah. It's so funny. When I
Well-
was growing up, and even when I was in college, it was like no problem to get a cat.
Like,
They were-
we'll pay you to take this
Right.
cat.
There are people throwing cats at me. They're like, "Do you want a cat? Do you want a kitten? I've got a cat who had kittens. Here, have a cat. Here, have a cat. Here." I didn't have to go to a shelter to find a cat. I didn't have to do anything to find a cat. I got 2 wonderful cats. It was amazing. And now it's like this massive effort. I'm about to say, forget it. I don't even care.
No.
Yeah, good
No,
idea.
Find a cat under the stairs or something.
If a cat comes into my life, then we get a cat. But I am done with this active searching.
Yes,
just-
don't look.
It's such a bummer because I'm sure there are so many cats that need a home.
Sure, bring them to me. I'll meet
But-
them.
Yeah, but what is the issue here? Like this cat that needs a home.
Oh dear, what have you done to the cats? I don't like cats with people mouths.
Or how about, burrito cat?
Cat burritos.
Ah.
Aw.
Ah!
Thanks, Identity 4.
Ooh,
Glad
get
you
a
liked
chimera
it.
cat. Look at the chimera cat.
It's like a harlequin.
Look at it.
It's a harlequin cat.
Ah.
Yeah. That cat with a human mouth there. Nope. Nope.
Go. Oh my goodness. I just Google searched the word cat. Look what came up. Cat breeding. I
Cat
do love cat
breeding?
breeding.
Are you kidding?
I love cat breeding. It's so great. Look at this one.
I've never heard of this before. Why do people do this?
cat breeding?
Oh, why would you do that to a cat?
Cat breeding is amazing. Hold on, I just need to search.
We now know what kind of crazy cat lady Blair is.
The kind that's really mean to cats. Oh my god, look at this cat bread.
It's like egg bread.
Look at that one.
Kitty cat egg bread.
Oh no, look at that one. Here's bunny bread.
Oh, bunny bread. See, that at least it's like alliteration.
Look at this one.
Bunny bread, you and the bread.
Here's a cat that looks like a loaf of bread.
These cats are not happy cats with the bread on their heads. None of them look happy.
Oh, that one got a pita.
Cat breading, toxo overload. Right,
look at-
Ed.
look at-
Right.
Look at the kittens.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god. Top 10 cats with things on their legs. Thanks, Internet.
Why? The internet is so useless sometimes. Oh my goodness.
I talk all the time about how Google made a machine to scan the internet, and the first thing it did was find cats.
Yep.
Oh, here's a cat with some toilet paper rolls on his legs.
That's not even that funny.
It's kind of funny.
Now that's weird. That one was weird.
No. I'm gonna have nightmares from that one. These are not very creative.
No, it's just
Everyone just did toilet paper, except for these cannolis. Oh no, those are baguettes.
baguette. Somebody put a baguette on their cats.
Oh my goodness.
Puss in Boots. There you go.
Well, that's it for top 10 cats with things on their legs.
Yeah.
Overall, not that interesting.
Let's see. So, we have gotten a positive, so far positive response about going to Maryland in November for their STEM festival.
Cool.
Phil, who has been contacting me, says I need to send him some information, and then he has to go to the steering committee and see if they approve everything. But yeah, he says he can let us know whether or not we're in by the end of April.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Sound interesting?
Yeah.
Let's go to Maryland.
Yes.
Where should we go in Maryland? Because the STEM festival's all over Maryland for that period of time. I wonder
I'm
where
going
they're
to eat so much lobster. Is that a thing?
Baltimore, Maryland.
I have
know
a friend
lots of
in
people.
Baltimore.
No, I know lots of people in Baltimore. This will be awesome. You know who's
I
in
know
Baltimore?
there are lots of rats in Baltimore. We just talked about it.
Is Patrick Hartnett still in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Patrick's in Baltimore.
Helped me make a calendar.
Yep. We could take out the rats in Baltimore. That's right, Whiskey Renegade. Identity 4. I don't want to make extra work for you. I mean, I can actually. It would really help this week because it's spring break, so Kai is home all week long. I have had very little time to get anything done.
This week?
It's spring break this week.
San Francisco's doing it next week.
Yeah, this week is Portland Public Schools spring break, and our preschool decided to do spring break in conjunction. And Marshall has to work, and so we're just kind of here. And I didn't plan ahead and get him into any camps or anything like that. I mean, that's like extra money, and it's expensive. So he's hanging out here at home with me. So I wonder, I should have done the economic analysis of work I'm not getting done, work I'm not pitching because my son is home and I'm entertaining him all day long every day, or the amount of money it would cost him to send him to a camp. Yeah, but tomorrow we're going to go to OMSI, which is the Science and Tech Museum here in Portland.
It's awesome.
Which is super awesome. So we're going to have an awesome science day with my son tomorrow.
Yes. It's going to be crowded though. We went to the zoo today, as with my youngest we go at least once a week, and because of the spring break, my middle child was able to go with us. We had a blast, but I've never seen that many people at the zoo. It was so slammed with people.
Yep, that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
The busiest weekends usually that I see are Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends. are just, you can barely walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd really like to go to the zoo here in Oregon and in Portland, and I'd planned to do that with him this week, but it's just raining.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, outdoor zoo, lots of rain. Nope.
Zoos are fun right after rain because then he could jump in puddles and stuff, and animals are usually also jumping in puddles.
Right, but when it's raining, everybody's taking cover, right?
Yeah. Well, mostly, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to the Portland Zoo, so I have absolutely no idea what it's like.
Well,
and
when
what
I'm
kind of
coming to visit, you're going whether you
enclosures.
like it or not.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Yeah, so okay, what am I doing? And I'm trying to figure out, so May, so I haven't responded to the guy, but going to San Francisco. I've been invited to give a talk either, I think it's May 18th-ish or in mid-September. And so if I come to San Francisco, maybe we can coordinate some other stuff. But I don't know, is May too soon to try and coordinate that kind of stuff? Or like doing something at the zoo? Or because you had talked about your boss being interested in that.
Yeah. We could. It's probably pretty close for the zoo. But what about nightlife or
They plan pretty far out too, as far as I'm aware.
I think they only do a couple months.
Yeah.
I think. And then well, it's also possible we could fit with a theme that is already there.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're just, science.
Science!
It's a pretty loose theme. The Exploratorium, I know, has their podcasted video dome.
Right. Yes.
Trum.
Yeah, I tried to coordinate with them before I moved, and they were like super difficult. I don't know.
Yeah, because they do Wednesday nights, right? I think.
Yeah.
Or is it Tuesday nights? I think it's Wednesday nights. And then
Wednesday
the Academy's Thursday nights. We could also just do like a meetup-y thing.
We could also just do a meetup in
Well,
the area.
or what are they called? Oh, nerd nights. We could do a nerd night maybe at a cafe or something.
Yeah, the nerd nights in San Francisco, those are pretty packed and popular. I don't know if they do like smaller things, but
I don't know. I think we could record a show in a cafe or something potentially. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like
As long as we'd have the internets.
Yeah.
You always need the internets for this this show, unless we just recorded audio off of our computers. I don't know. There's so many details.
Yeah.
So
we
details for that
could
kind of stuff.
record it ahead of time, and then just play it Wednesday at 8, and then be in the chat room when it's playing. And then there would still be a live component, right? I don't know.
Right. We could do that too, yeah.
Just spitballing.
Nice. Any thoughts, Justin?
On what?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Yep.
I like the idea.
You're like, I'm all for it.
The other thing on the horizon is that we find out I think next month if we get nominated again for the Academy of Podcasters Awards.
All right.
And that is in Chicago this year.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Planarian is saying, I have noticed poor video audio synchronization in your shows. Have you noticed this? Yeah, I have noticed it, and when I'm watching it, that there is not much apparent delay while we're doing it. Just maybe very, very slight, but when I do watch later, there seems to be delay. And as Identity 4 is saying, this is normal with YouTube Hangouts, especially if some of the participants have crummy internet and computers.
I'm hardwired. I don't know
Yeah,
what
we've
else
all
I
done the
can
best
do.
we can. I've turned off my Wi-Fi. We've done the best we can to be hardwired and to get our computers running up to snuff. Yeah, I think it's just, sometimes there's just a lot of pull on the various internets, the
And
tubes.
we're also a live video cast without a giant production behind it. So that there's all those things. If we had the Momo money, like the Waymo money,
The Waymo,
then we could sync it. We could even dub it. It could be coming through it in a different language. We could speak a different language and then have it dubbed in English if we had the finances to do so.
Duh. Duh. Yeah, and as Gord is saying, really, we're an audio show. It's always been radio first. Yeah. Audio first, and so the video is the live bonus. And then I've been pushing the YouTube a little bit more, just putting it out there and making it happen, but, it still is what it is. And our main audience is definitely audio. We are audio. We do it all, though. I wish we could sync up on a super high bandwidth, 1 gigabit connection for each of us, right?
Yes.
That would be awesome.
I can't really tell. I don't know if I'm out of sync. I feel as though I'm perfectly synced.
No, it seems fine right now. It seems absolutely fine. It's just, for our viewers, maybe it's not, and later on for the YouTube video, it's not always.
I feel like you're not synced, though. Wait, hang on. Let me...
I think
not.
Kiki is now.
No, I think she's not now. Now
No,
say
there's
something,
a slight,
Blair.
there is a slight delay.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got a pretty good delay on you, Blair.
What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really?
That's significant, yeah.
Oh, that's because I'm loading a page.
Oh, why are you doing that?
Now, see, I X'd out of the page. Am I fine now?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
Now I'm fine?
No, you're still...
Oh, it broke it.
Yeah.
It was fine
But
until I
can't
did
tell
that.
because I think in my little viewer at the bottom there is just showing me in real time. And so what you're seeing could be delayed.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't tell. I can't tell if what I'm seeing is live or if it's Google Memorex.
Hmm. I don't know, man.
Memorex.
Oh, I've got a new guitar coming.
Oh, cool.
You play guitar?
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I play all the time. Yeah.
Oh.
Like in a band and stuff. No, actually, I don't play. I've been learning to play.
There.
Come on with this.
I've been learning to play. I mean, I can play a little bit. I can play I can do bar chords really fast and that sort of thing. But I've been trying to learn how to play surf guitar. And the guitar I've got coming isn't a surf guitar at all. So I'm already thinking about the next guitar. But yeah, I've already got like 5 guitars here that I've been learning to play over the years, different ways. We're doing a show next week, right? There's no talk about doing a show next week.
We are doing a show next week.
We always have a show.
It will be March 30th. We will have a show next Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, what was I going to say? Justin, what was coming up? I love these calendars and looking up what's coming up. End of the month in April is World Day for Laboratory Animals. So I'd like to do that interview with the people that you met related to the mice.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that would be a really interesting thing to sync it up with. So if you can resend if you can find it.
Resend.
And resend the information to be able to get in touch with them. That would be cool.
Looking around as though the information is just...
right next to you. It might be. I don't know where you put things.
I know, neither do I. That's why. Yeah. Okay. I know the name of the place is Jackson Labs. It's probably all we really need is to talk to their PR department.
Okay.
Yeah. The guy I met was I think he's a technician or something. But it says that we can either get interviews with scientists. They have this whole outreach side of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the PR department could put us in touch with a scientist, or they themselves could just talk about the wonderful things that they do.
Cool.
But I think it would be fun to talk to a scientist there. Also about how CRISPR has been impacting their business, because it sounds like they are having a huge uptick in business for providing these mice.
Interesting.
Because the CRISPR-Cas9 has allowed researchers to really target what the knockout mouse is doing. It's not just a sort of blanket knockout now. It's very specific things that are being sort of sharpied out in the text of the DNA, and this is to facilitate research that wasn't even possible to do before CRISPR, because it was hard to isolate certain things to this degree. So it's a big uptick in research that's being done. There's probably tons of research that was on the, sort of on the if we could only get a perfect example of this to study sort of pile of potential science to be done. That's now completely possible. So they're very busy. They're utilizing CRISPR-Cas9, and it's sort of as requested from the researchers. And it's sort of this interesting thing. The researchers really have to telegraph how many of the specimens they're going to need, and then there's this whole, you do the CRISPR-Cas9 thing, and then you sort of just breed the mice, but not all of it takes in every generation. It's not as simple as if it's knocked out in both parents of the next generation, it's not guaranteed that it will be knocked out in both of the offspring. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
To go through. So yeah, I would love to talk to these folks. Perfect day to do it.
Yeah, I think it would be really neat to kind of tie it in.
Jackson Labs, no relation.
We talk about it's not any self promotion of any kind.
No.
Jack's home, that would be this. Contact.
Oh yeah, and they have Jax, which is for a website. Which is
Jax, Jax. Yeah, it's a good one. They do not have a phone number that I want to call.
Okay. I can find.
So they're in Sacramento. Is that?
Yeah. But I have somewhere in the catalog of photography taken a picture of the card. It's just a matter of figuring out where that is.
Be able to figure it out.
Unlimited data, but finding anything, it's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought of something that would be, if people want to help TWIS out. I don't know. Maybe I can get a list going or something. But the time codes. It would be awesome to get the YouTube time codes for like the back catalog of TWIS videos, so I can start cataloging our stories by time code on YouTube, and go back through the catalog.
Is it something that we can keep track of as we do the show, or is that going to be too difficult?
Yeah, no.
Too difficult?
Yeah. I mean, there's when I hit start. There's no time code here, so it's not. Yeah. I don't have a time code on what I'm seeing. I don't know. Is for people watching, you guys watching, is there a time code that you can see? Because I don't have a time code.
Yeah, because if we knew exactly when it started, I could start like a stopwatch function And then I would have, and then every time somebody started something, I could just write that down, like in the show notes next to it. I could put the timestamp next to it. I would be happy to do that during the show. That would be easy. I wouldn't be able to do the ones while I'm talking. Someone else would have to step in for those. But for both of you, that's something I could totally do as long as we had a way to know when to start the stopwatch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Therein is the problem.
That is the problem, yes. Loquacious is doing a lot of joining and quitting. What's going on, Loquacious? What's happening?
Identity 4 bailed and came back too, so I think something weird is going. Oh, look. Time code generator. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
What you find there?
Oh, it's a thing.
SMPTE. Wave
I don't
file.
understand.
Time code as a wave file.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, the Gem Doctor, we don't have a red line. There's the problem. Plus, I think all of you are a few seconds off from one another. It depends on when you hit the refresh button when we started the show. So that's why some people comment on things at slightly different times, even though it's all about the right time. It's all of you are probably slightly out of sync with each other and with us, and so it's really hard for us to tell how that works. So the only way that we could generate timestamps in the show is if one of you did that while you were watching it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we don't have a red line like you do.
No.
We don't got it.
No red line.
Yeah. But if you're watching, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Control room. Cameraman. I'm going to open apps and see.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is a camera thing. Control room. That just lets me mute people. Ha ha ha. I can do that. That's effects. Too much work. I know why, guy. Too much work. What I want is I just want to be able to hit a little button every time somebody starts a new story, and all I just do is go hit the M button for mark, and it just marks it in the Google Hangout.
That'd be great.
That would be amazing. That would be like my dream. Mark, it's a new segment. Mark. Oh, and for Ed, his time code is working backwards. Interesting. Let's see. I don't think I have anything. Did I have anything I wrote down this week? No. Okay, I need to schedule a Patreon hangout for the end of the month. And so how about we schedule a Patreon hangout for those of you who are night owls who want to hang out for the hour after the show next week.
Great.
And, yeah, so we'll hang out with people after the show next week. Whoever can do that, I'll send in a Patreon message to people. Remind me that I said to do this. Okay. And then for other people, I can also do a second hangout on Friday, April 1st. And I promise it won't be an April Fool's Day joke where I don't show up.
April 1st.
Yeah.
Looking at my calendar. I think I could make that too if it was after work.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do after work for you.
Okay.
Because,
That's
yeah,
fine.
I'd love to do that. But, yeah. Yeah, you guys can do Hangouts without me, too. What?
Never.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time to go to bed.
I'd agree with that.
Time to have my last beverage for the evening. Relax a little bit, calm it down, center myself, prepare for the lying in bed and having my head spin in all sorts of directions. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. A Friday hangout would be great. Okay, Ed. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Blair, Justin, good show. We done did it. What?
Thanks for coming, everybody.
What are you doing, Justin? What do you mean, hang on?
I'm looking for, because I was sure I had texted you a picture of the card.
Did you email it maybe?
Could have, but I'm not finding it anywhere. So maybe I didn't. Maybe I thought I did. I don't know. No, that's a picture of a toad.
Picture of a toad, you say? You can't just say that and then not show me.
It's you drawing the toad. Is what that
Oh, it's a drawing of a toad that I did?
Yeah, it's from the calendar. It's before it even got penned in or colored in or whatever. And yeah, apparently it's not in here anywhere. Interesting. So I can go look it up, but I don't seem to have it. And I thought I did. Very weird.
Oh, look, maybe I've got it. Justin.
I might have. Did I give you the card? I feel like I gave you the card when we were in New York, and that's why.
Oh, crap.
That seems like a mistake.
I know.
Hey, now that you're across the country from where you keep all your things.
Sure, I'll take that. Awesome. Yes, perfect. Darn it. I'm going to search for Justin. I will look. So was it in January? What's that? Oh, that's my car. Nope. All right. I don't have it either. This is probably riveting video. Riveting. And did Justin just leave?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, is he strumming, playing the guitar for us? He's practicing. Awesome.
Did you see, I sent you an email a couple weeks ago of the person or the company that made the calendars. Someone had reached out to me and asked if we were going to make calendars again. I think I sent you an email about that. And
yes.
And I said, well,
oh, that's right, from the company.
Yeah, only if we can do it for the same price as last year. And essentially the answer was yes.
Oh, nice.
So that's good news.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to figure out, I gotta work my shipping costs a little bit better than I did this year, but I'll figure that out eventually. Yeah. All these details.
Yeah. And I have one piece of art ready for the calendar.
Awesome! Or for a patron.
Yes, for both.
Yes, for a patron.
Speaking of which, I have never yet heard back from or gotten any info back from the Geno Project folks.
Really?
You sent off your
Long low time.
DNA and
Right
you,
around Christmas. Seems like things should have progressed by now.
It should have progressed
yeah,
by
you
now.
should reach out.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go talk to them. I totally forgot about it. Thankfully, I didn't throw away the box. Otherwise, it would
I'd have forgotten about it entirely. It would have been like months from now, and you'd be like, "Oh, what? Where'd that go?" All right, you guys.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna hang up.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully,
everybody.
the TWIS Minion Science Island hangout happens tomorrow. I hope you have a good meetup for that. I hope the scienceisland.org issues fix themselves. Ed, I hope that works out. So anyway, yeah, glad everyone could stop by tonight to hang out and chat about the science. We've got more science for you next week. More science, more awesome people together. Have a great weekend, or I guess end of the week. It's hump day,
Right.
so let's get past it. Let's just keep going. Forward. Night.